Let's be honest. In the year 2020, many of us were challenged by many things, one of them being closer to our internal chaos and feeling unmotivated, which essentially is caused by having insufficient knowledge of how to be more organized. In the next couple minutes, I will be breaking down some of the most essential tactics that can be used to improve our organizational skills. First, I would like to cover the principle of mise en place. So, what is it? It comes from the French term of everything coming, or it comes from the French language, and it translates to everything in its place. It consists of everything having a spot and a place that is designated to be, and it must be respected at all times. If it's not respected, then that means chaos. Based on what Anthony Bourdain mentions in his book of Kitchen Confidential, it is also your setup, your work environment, and your state of mind. In addition to that, organizing is should be by experience and not by dogma. One example of this principle is again by Anthony Bourdain in his Kitchen of Confidential analogy. Typically, chefs inventory their kitchen by alphabetical order. But in this case, he organizes his kitchen by the geological location of the kitchen. Therefore, he decides to ditch the dogma because it doesn't make sense in his scenario. And he feels like he functions better in a place or in the inventory setup by geological location. With this said, creating a system that is relevant to you and it makes sense, it is way superior rather than following a format that may not be suited for you. Another aspect to include in the mise en place is labeling. Based on the article Why Being Organized is Important, Top 15 Benefits of Being Organized by Allison, being organized with labels can help you keep track of what you have. For example, organizing cables. We all have that location in the house with a bunch of cables that we don't even know what they are for. One of the best ways to organize those cables is by putting them into Ziploc bags and storing them in a container specific to that category, essentially cables. So whenever you go and reach that container, you know that all those cables are going to be located in that container, and they're going to be separated and labeled to what that cable is for. Organizing does not just apply to the physical space, but it also applies to the mind. A technique that can be used to organize the mind is essentially lateral thinking, and is acquired through practice. So don't get butthurt or frustrated that you don't get it all in one go. So what is lateral thinking? It is the process of solving problems using indirect lines of reasoning. And how this applies to the organizing and being productive is through mindfulness, which mindfulness thinking, which is taking care of dependencies such as food, water, shelter, school, work, anything that you would be dependent of thinking constantly every day, even brushing your teeth, cooking, or basic necessities. Based on the abstract of Dr. Ju, mindfulness training for addiction awareness and mindfulness may be the way to unlock the power to reward based learning. And this can be applied by maintaining your life how currently is or maybe improving it. And one more advanced level, it can help with forward thinking by promising questions to set yourself up, which essentially helps you take advantage of future opportunities. Another aspect to take in consideration when doing lateral thinking is that your brain is unreliable. It so therefore you don't solely rely on your brain to store information. Based on the article on the unreliable memory by Ken Isold, it is proving that in many occasions the brain fails at recalling information. An example of this is when coming to confessing to crimes or witnessing and declaring that witness. Some people will remember a crime differently. Maybe it can be dramatized by remembering that they think there was a scattered window, but they may have not been a scattered window, or certain actions that happened but were not really actually happening. This can be applicable with when remembering the small little things, such as an appointment that you have to go or that you have in the future. Many of us can't remember at the moment. And what we do, we write it down, we put reminders on the phone, or we put it where we look at the most in order to remind ourselves. But there's a lot of things that we constantly have to remind ourselves that we should be putting down because our brain is constantly overworking for that. And this can be avoided by creating a system that you rely on. It must be accessible, it must be organized, and it must be searchable. And always, always have a backup. You do not want to lose that information. So therefore, maybe writing it down in a notebook may not be the best way because you cannot back it up. But if writing it down in a notebook is a way for you to remind yourself, then that will be your method. In conclusion, with the combination of mise en place and lateral thinking, you will be able to be more organized and productive because you're not overloading your brain with information and creating categories and spaces that is dedicated for things. The most important takeaway of this is that you cannot depend on your brain for a lot of things to remind yourself, and that overworking your brain can cause chaos and make you feel overwhelmed. And if you write something down or you organize something, it's always going to be one less thing to worry about